Okay, so that was the second essay. And if the first essay, like I said, was going towards why I made the website, the second essay is towards why I'm making the business. And the website is an opportunity for me to be honest with myself and enjoy life because I'm being honest with myself. The business is me trying to establish a structure that prevents myself from getting in the way of being honest. Getting in my own way, I mean. And this comes from the word success, which I have italicized. Now, I began this essay with a quote from the novel Infinite Jest, and now I'm just going to talk about the novel holistically for a second. I call this book the longest book you'll ever read because one, it's 1,100 pages long. Two, you have to read it at least twice in order to understand it. And the reason why you have to read it at least twice is because it takes no time explaining itself. At the beginning, it just hits you with characters, fictional organizations, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't explain any of it. And I think for the most part, people are okay with this because I think it's just sort of like this book is already 1,100 pages long. If you took the time to explain yourself, how long would it be? So I think a lot of people are fine that stuff was left out. But I also think this type of thinking leads to some of the more common criticisms I've heard of this book, which is, if this book is this long, why did you choose to leave that in? You could have gone without it. And I think the most extreme version of this criticism that I've heard is a lot of the just sort of random, seemingly unnecessary pieces of information and knowledge as it shows. Like, it has oddly in-depth discussions on pharmaceuticals, optics, lenses, and cameras. But I think the most notorious example of this is how the book has a 2 to 3 page description of the mean value theorem of calculus. And it's done through dialogue, but it's still just, it's calculus for 2 to 3 pages. And I think a lot of people, when they ask themselves, why would you keep something like that in a book that's already this long? Like, why did that not get cut? I think the answer a lot of people come to is that it's him showing off and just being like, look how much I know. And I heard a person use the word indulgent to describe it, and that is just a display of intelligence. And all of this is a very valid criticism, and I'm not trying to take it away. This book is art. People can interpret it the way they do. But I do hear something different. I would agree that my interpretation says it's a display of intelligence, but I think my understanding of the reasoning is different. And this is because I hear someone saying, look, I'm smart. I know I'm smart. I have been smart my whole life. People have told me this my whole life. But I can promise you, when you're detoxing on the floor of a jail cell, it doesn't matter how smart you are. And this, to me, is one idea of many that make this book about the question, how is it that I have everything I want and I'm still this miserable? And I think the reason why I hear that is because over the last several years, I have asked myself many times, how can I have everything I want and still be this miserable? Right? I had a job, a successful job. I own my own home. I have nice things. And yet, somehow, over the last 5 years, I mentioned stress-induced insomnia. I stopped sleeping because of work, and I bounced in and out of psych hospitals for depression, and I abused alcohol for a while. And just how can I have all of these nice things and still be this miserable? And I think, like I said, this goes back to the word success, the one that I italicized. Because to me, success was a concept I put a lot of value in without ever defining. And what I mean by that is, like, why did I choose to go into mechanical engineering as a major for college? Was it because there was a specific job I had in mind that I thought was going to make me happy, that I knew what the day-to-day was going to be like and I thought I'd enjoy it? No, I didn't know what the day-to-day of any engineering job was. Did I choose that as a major because I thought I would love the courses? No, I didn't even look up the course list. I chose mechanical engineering as a major because I thought I would be pretty good at it, and I thought it would get me a successful job. And once again, it's this idea of success that it's not defined. It's just something that looks good, pays well, like just something about it seems successful. And the problem with pursuing success as a concept instead of a defined entity is that what it becomes is me spending all my time trying to get as far ahead as possible without really considering the consequences along the way. Because if the only thing I want to do is get further down the road, then I will make sacrifices. Whereas if I had an end goal, I could make it to that point and stop making sacrifices. And by sacrifices, what I mean is I worked pretty hard in high school, took AP classes I didn't like just to get into a really good college, to move further down the road, where I worked really hard for 4 years just to get a successful job, where I worked really hard. And the point is, I put in years of effort, get about 3 or 4 days of being happy, years of effort, 3 or 4 days of being happy. And I would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing further down the road without having an end goal in mind. And the problem with that is you sacrifice all of your todays for tomorrow, or I did at least, I shouldn't say you. I sacrificed all of my todays for tomorrow, and in the process, I had some very miserable todays. And despite knowing this, I'm talking in this essay about, like, wanting to avoid writing or something like that, but something else is that, like, I am starting to think of my writing define its success in terms of how much I made compared to what I was making before. And it's that same idea of I was just trying to get as much money as I could and be whatever through that job. And as I'm sitting here, just like sort of unconsciously, I'm getting to this point where I'm scared of failure. I'm scared of being less than what I was before, sort of like this essay mentions being scared of failure, but I'm also scared of being less than what I was before. And I'm starting to get to the point where, like, maybe I'm going to stop being honest in what I write or try to promote myself in different ways that require me to change who I am in order to be just as successful as I was before. And like I said, the goal of the website is to give myself an opportunity to be honest. And the goal of the business associated with it is to prevent myself from getting in my own way to doing that. And if this idea of wanting to be successful is getting in my own way, then I've decided a way to get around that, which is I've decided there is going to be a maximum salary I pull from this company. And I sat down for a while and thought about what that number was. And I call that number an enjoyable wage, right? where it is the lowest number possible to be able to live in a way where I can enjoy life. Which means, like, I'm not eating at restaurants all the time, but I'm not buying the lowest quality ingredients at the grocery store. I'm not living in a mansion, but I'm not living in a studio. I sat down and thought for a while about it, and the number that I came down to was $50,000. And that unless I have a major change in life circumstances, the maximum salary I'll ever pull from this is $50,000. Now, who knows if I'll ever even get to that point, but that is the cap. And I'll adjust for inflation, but that is the cap. And just take the idea of getting as far ahead as I possibly can off the table. So then what is the business once I get past $50,000, if I ever do manage to make it? Well, then the answer is it becomes kind of a dream. And there's multiple phases to the dream, like each exponentially more of a dream than the last. But the goal is that every dollar I make beyond that 50,000 will go to creating opportunities for people to make an enjoyable wage. Nobody's going to get rich, but to make an enjoyable wage without having to pursue success like I did. And I mean, like I said, there's sort of a dream in my head. I mean, if I'm really, really crushing this, then there will be a part where I'm establishing grants for artists and small business loans and things like that. But that's if I'm doing crazy good. But if the business does moderately well, then the first way I'm going to enact this is by hiring my first employee. And that person's job title will be problem solver, and their job description will be solves problems. And essentially what this person is doing is providing or taking care of the various problems that get in the way of me having time to write. Because writing is what I love, and that's the part of this that I want to focus the most on. And when I hire this person, we'll sit down together and we'll determine what an enjoyable wage is for them. It might be less than it is what it is, less than mine. It might be more than mine. In fact, I could very well see it being more than mine, depending on their life circumstances. Are they trying to save for a down payment? Do they have kids? Things like that. That could make it more than mine. And I would not consider this employment to be me paying them for work. I would consider it like it's not a business relationship. The deal is that they give me time to do something I love, and I give them enough money to enjoy life without having to pursue success the way I did. And I think that works best for everyone. And I keep saying that everything beyond $50,000 is a dream to some extent, but every part of that dream is going to be built on the idea of people building one another up. And so this sort of gets into what my business plan is for making money and building an audience and whatnot. And that is simple. If I'm saying my dream is setting up systems in which people build one another up, then I think that's how my relationship with my audience should work. And I could sell ads on this site, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is ask you to do two things to build me up if what you think I'm making is good. The first is that if you like what I write, if you like these videos, subscribe to the site. There are going to be 5 subscription tiers, $2, $4, $6, $8, and $10 a month. And no matter what tier you're in, or if you don't pay at all, you get the same exact content. The only reason that you would subscribe to this site is that you think what I'm writing is cool, you think what I'm dreaming about is cool, whatever. It's because you want to build what I'm doing. And you want to support that. And then the second thing is how I'm going to spread my audience. There are a number of things that you can do on the internet to optimize your content, but I would prefer it if, in the spirit of building one another up, that I do nothing besides promote my content through conversation, and you guys help me out, and if you think what I'm doing is cool, you go tell someone. So like I said, if you think what I'm doing is cool, subscribe to my site and go tell somebody about it. And that's the business. Anyways, at this point, I have something else that I'm going to add to the end of this video that really has no bearing on the website or the business, but it's just something I think I need to say that will help me do well at this site. But if you are only interested in the website and the business, you can stop watching now. So in that second essay, I included the line, "I'm willing to never try writing because failing at it would be public, and I don't want to go through that." Obviously, I have decided to write if this has made it online. But I have still found myself in this position of not struggling so much with writing, but how all of it is going to work in trying to prevent a public failure. And it's through this fear. And it's not that I would be writing stuff, because the whole point of writing is for me to be honest with myself, right? And it's not that I'm writing, I want to add stuff on the website that isn't honest, but I'm starting to get to this place of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't include this section, maybe I shouldn't write this essay, maybe I shouldn't, and I keep wanting to pull back because I'm scared certain things are going to make me fail. And I don't want to fail publicly. And now I'm going to return to Infinite Jest one last time to sort of talk about how I'm going to deal with that. I don't know how to summarize this novel, so at this point I'm just going to say that addiction is a major theme, and 12-step programs, particularly AA, are a big part of the book. And although there are other real ones like NA, there are fictional 12-step programs like the UHID, which is the Union of the Hideously and Improbably Deformed. Basically people where their face is hideously and improbably deformed, and so they wear a veil to cover it. And it's odd that this veil it is a literal form of concealment, but they consider it a form of openness and acceptance. And the section that I'm going to read from is when one character, Joelle, is telling another character, Dawn, why she chooses to wear the veil. And she starts by saying that she's at parties and people are staring at her, but then they conceal the fact that they're staring at her because they know they're not supposed to, and how she just wants to hide as a result of that. When she notices them like hiding the stairs, she wants to duck under the table, she wants to leave the room, anything. And she says, "But Dawn, you're still a human being, you still want to live, you crave connection in society." And this is the issue. And then it becomes kind of a mental game for her. She says, "You know that you can't help how you look, but that you are supposed to be able to help how much you care about how you look, right? This is this idea of supposed to, like, I'm supposed to be able to not care, I should be able to not care, blah, blah, blah. And so she talks about how she goes out and she starts pretending like it doesn't bother her. Exert yourself to appear totally unaware of the facial struggles of people who are trying not to wince or stare or give away the fact that they can see that you're hideously and probably deformed, right? You're just like pretending that the way people react to you, that you have no reaction to their reaction. And she says, you take your desire to hide and conceal it under a mask of acceptance. And this is sort of where the UHID comes into play because, right, there's sort of there's the fact that her face is ugly. She's ashamed of her face being ugly, but then she's ashamed that she cares that her face is ugly. And there's these three different layers, but the shame part is actually not what matters. The part that's mattered all along is her saying, but Dawn, you're still a human being. You still want to live. You crave connection in society. And so what matters is that she can be herself around people. And even though she's ashamed that she cares about the way that she looks, what prevents her from being a part of society is not whether or not she cares. It's that she's faking that she doesn't care. And so the UHID presents this choice, right? She says, conceal it under a mask of acceptance or wear the veil. And she says, we don the veil and wear the veil proudly and stand very straight and walk briskly wherever we wish, veiled and hidden. And this is it. Should she be able to not care about the way she looks? Maybe, but she does. That doesn't really matter. What matters is she's not participating in society. And if the veil gives her the ability to participate in society, then that is what she's going to do, is wear the veil. And so the UHID is not real. So it's some type of metaphor. And I don't know what it was for David Foster Wallace, but applying it to my situation here, right? Just like for her, being in public was what would matter, or being herself in public is what mattered. For me, being honest when I write is what matters. And I'm talking about I'm willing to never try writing because failing at it would be public. And I'm talking to you about how I'm considering like pulling parts of essays because I don't want to fail publicly. And I'm telling myself I shouldn't have this fear of failure, right? In the first essay in this post, I talk about how like, as long as I'm breathing, I can breathe. Like I know that I'm going to be okay. And yet I'm afraid of failing anyway. And this like fear of failure is coming to the point where it might hurt me from being honest. And so instead of trying to tell myself I shouldn't have this fear of failure, what I'm going to do instead is what I'm doing right now, include this as part of the video and address this fear of failure by saying that I am scared this site is going to suck. I'm scared that my family and my friends are going to know that it sucks. I'm scared that they're all going to know that I failed. And as I've been thinking about this, what I've realized, what this all rolls up into is that I'm terrified that people are going to think I'm not perfect. And the reason why I'm choosing to record this and say this in this video is because when I say it out loud, it becomes incredibly obvious to me that whether I get another job, whether this writing is beautiful, whatever, there is no way that I can string together a human life in which people are going to think I'm perfect. So instead of trying to be perfect, I'm just going to be myself. And that's how I'm going to write. Anyways, that's all I had. If you stuck to the end of this, I'm grateful for your time, and I hope you have a good night.